click that like. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Giants, cryptids that call, aliens, histories will uncover it all. With Rye The Codega, we'll never be alone. Together we'll always find our way home. Oh, oh, oh.
Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to an impromptu live. Tonight, I'm going to be joined with Brad. I reached out to Vicky Joy Anderson. She is just a little busy tonight, so she is not going to make it. So it's just going to be Brad and I. But yeah, I was missing doing the lives. I've been so busy lately. It's been really crazy. I've had a ton of interviews, doing interviews for other shows. I just did one for the Occult Rejects and Cosmic Peach, and that released today. It was about Magdalena Solis and the vampiric Mexican sacrificial cult. So if you guys remember that, I had Blaze Stark on, and they asked me to join them, the Occult Rejects and Cosmic Peach, to give them the lowdown of those events that happened in San Luis Potosi. So I did. It went great. They are asking me back. So who knows where that will lead? They're a great bunch of people. Really, really fun. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, and it just seems that the interviews are picking up more and more. And I'm going to be having one of our listeners and viewers on for a interview as well, coming this Thursday, I believe. So that'll be really cool. I know she's been wanting to release these stories, release these experiences. So we're going to get to that one. My book out date though is crazy. You know, like I said, I've been getting a ton of new guests all lined up, and so I'm booking out to. I'm in May now. I'm already booking shows for May, so that's a little crazy, but just really fantastic guests lined up. You know, it's crazy. Some of the ones that have joined or that have reached out to me, or just serendipitously, you know, I'm in some groups where some people are posting, they're like, hey, I got the story I want to tell, or hey, I got this research I want to tell. And there was a group of doctors who have just written a book about Enoch and the antediluvian, before, like the world before the flood. And they just wrote this book and they wanted to get on a show. So yeah, that was serendipitous that I jumped onto that right away. What do you guys like listening to? So that is a question I've always wanted to know. Like personally myself, it seems to change. It always seems to change. You know, like I'd say in the beginning was Dogman, maybe some Bigfoot stories, but it just evolves. And just like the show is evolving, you can see where I'm kind of heading. You know, it seems to be like this Nephilim and these, you know, I'm taking the Bible more as a historical book. Then, you know, a lot of people refer to as a religious book. Of course I do as well, but I am, it's becoming a history book, and you start getting people who are diving deep into it and relaying this to us. And without, I'm not going to keep him waiting. Brad just popped in, so I think he is good to go. I'm just going to look if he gives me the thumbs up. I am, yep, here we go. So let's bring Brad to, well, he's no stranger to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. Brad, how you doing?
Pretty good. Can you hear me? Am I muted? Okay.
No, I can hear you.
I can't hear you in my headphones. That's why. All right. Sorry about that. How you doing, buddy?
No, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I was just doing a little recap and just saying that things are crazy busy. It's just I'm booking out now till May. I've got so many guests lined up. It's just I would say, you know, January, February, things were a little slow, and end of February until now, things have just snowballed. Even for our listening stats, though, as well, I felt that we had a little bit of a dip there. You know, it seemed to everything kind of slowed down a little bit, but now it just seems that things are picking up again. So, which is great.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a slowdown too, man. It's kind of a weird time. I guess everybody's spring is in the air. People are cleaning out their houses, and what you would think that people would be listening.
That's a perfect time to listen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that is when I actually listen to them as well. It kind of you know, when I'm working, like today, I was building a floating shelf for underneath my TV, so I don't get to listen to many episodes. So I listen to, well, while I've been working on this, I've been listening to a bunch of episodes. Today I got to listen to 2. I listened to yours, the fire episode. I listened to it, started listening to it, but then I was able to finish it a couple days ago, and that was fantastic. And who are the guys that you had on again? They were great.
That was Hank and Kyle from the Sunday Night Secret Society podcast.
They were great.
Yeah,
there were some good guests. Yeah, you guys had some great talks. It was kind of funny because you would start with the fire, and then you guys would just go off in a different direction, which was great.
Yeah, that's where they usually go.
And then it's like, bring it back, and then you're like, okay, we should be talking about this. Then you'd bring it back, and then you guys would go off in another direction. But I think that's what I say all the time about my show as well. You know, it has legs. The conversation has legs, and it just walks off in different directions where it's supposed to naturally go. You know, I think that's important. And before we go too far, I'm sure everybody knows you, but do you want to give yourself a shout out there?
Yeah, thank you for having me on, buddy. As always, I appreciate you putting me in front of your amazing audience, and you know, getting to chat about things that I feel like are important to talk about for what's current events in the United States. I mean, we are the new media, you know what I mean? And it's
We are.
great to
We are
be a part of that.
Yeah, we're independent media.
Yeah. But yeah, my name is Bradley. I'm the host of the Awaken podcast. As Rye just alluded to, I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying to get better.
No, you are. It's great. It was great. I
No, it's
really
good.
enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, it was good. Those guys are good. But yeah, I'm trying to get better at this at doing this. This is a weird thing, man. It's like I heard who did I hear talking about being in front of an audience? Oh, David Blaine, the magician, and he was
Okay.
talking about the psychology of talking in front of people, or talking in front of a camera, or being on a show, or doing a podcast, or whatever he's talking about. He said, it's weird because as for our entire history, we've gone to, we think of the predator prey relationship. When someone's staring at you, you feel like you're the prey. And so if you're in front of an audience, or talking to people, or whatever it may be, it's weird because all eyes are on you. And so you can have this sort of fight or flight response, but it's you get used to it over time, I guess. And you kind of adapt to it and keep, growing and changing. And eventually you just get comfortable and you're like, oh, nobody's going to kill me. I'm good. I'm just going to keep talking, and,
Yeah,
what happens.
it takes a little bit to get over that. Like, whenever I first start the lives, every single time, it feels so awkward. It feels so weird. You're like, especially when you're doing it by yourself, because even though there is people in the chat, it's like, who am I talking to? And I heard someone saying that you have to, like, imagine that there's someone there. Imagine that you're actually talking to someone. So that's one thing I got to start doing, because it seems a little awkward at times, but I'm glad, we got a lot of people sitting in the chat already. So, everybody give a shout out to, let's see where everybody's from. I think Jojo is from Australia.
Can I say something about that? Dude, Australian people show a lot of love to me. I don't know about you, but I get messages all the time. I get comments from a lot of Australian people. So shout out to the folks listening in Australia. I really appreciate you guys more than you know. I mean, when we get I believe a couple episodes ago, you and I did together, somebody from Australia said greetings from Australia or something like that. Yeah. Nice to see you, Jojo. So it's always great to hear those positive things from people. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening.
I totally, there we go. Baltimore, Maryland. All right. Where else? So yeah, everybody else, Northwestern PA, everybody keep posting where you're from and let us know. So yeah. I know we have a lot of Americans, and I wonder if there's anybody, and that is fantastic. But where is everybody from? That's always something I always wonder about. Of course, I'm in Mexico, and I'm a Canadian in Mexico living abroad. And Brad, what about you?
South Carolina, born and raised. I spent some time in the military, so I got to live in the DC area when I was up in Laurel, Maryland, up in the Baltimore, Maryland area at Fort Meade for a little while. Then I went to my first real assignment was in Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. I lived in Turkey for about a year and a half, which was really cool. Yeah, I got to travel a lot over in the Middle East. And then I lived in Tampa, where I met my wife. And we
have someone from Florida here too. Factory Polo from Ponte Verde Beach, Florida.
Ponte Vedra. Yeah, I really don't know how to say it, but it rains every day at 4:00 in Ponte Vedra Beach.
PA, live in Ohio, got Massachusetts, and of course we have Joanne from Champion, Alberta. That is a tiny, tiny place, but a great name. Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Yeah, I heard Matthew McConaughey telling this story the other day. I just happened upon it on Instagram, and he was saying that he went to the place that he was conceived, and his
mother.
No, like the actual place, which I believe was like a fort as well. It was like Fort something. I can't remember, somewhere in Texas or something. And it was where he was actually conceived. And he said that he could sense the rain coming towards him. And then a little bit later it rained, and then it snowed and hailed all in the exact same spot, but within like a 30-foot parameter just around him. And then everything outside of that was like completely like nothing had happened. No, it was no snow, no rain, no nothing. And he was like, to me, it meant he's like, it felt like I was in a, close to my roots of where I was. And I feel like that was where I had the most energy at. He's like, I felt great. I felt amazing. And he said, so I moved back to Texas to kind of get back to my roots. And that's why I'm back in South Carolina too, is because I truly feel that way as well. Even though I'm about an hour away from where I was born and raised, but I still feel like when you get close to your roots, you get the most out of who you really are, who you're really supposed to be. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's pretty
So
interesting.
he was born in Montreal, and Leeson Firefear is from the Middle East, but his dream is to live in the U.S. Cool.
Who is it? Who was that?
Lyson Firefear.
Fear. Cool.
Yeah, let's put that on there.
Yeah, you want to live and love in the United States, right?
Yeah. Of course. You know,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Yeah, when you're talking about Turkey, I just for those who don't know, one of my main source of income is actually English tutoring, and I just picked up a new student who's a bit of a celebrity in Turkey. She was on TLC, like she had her own show on TLC, a cooking show. She's a master chef, and so very interesting individual. She researches why we eat the foods we eat from a historical and biblical, and from the Quran as well. Like, we kind of know it's like, oh, I don't eat this then, but I eat this now. Like, this is what I should be doing. Like, let's say tomatoes, we only eat them in the summer, maybe not so much in the winter. But why? Hey there, Paul. We got Paul too from Paranormal Paul is in the house. So she goes into this, and it's like, one of the main reasons is eating tomatoes lowers your body temperature. So that's why it's a good thing to eat during the summer. And then you like ginger raises your body temperature. So it's good to eat during, the winter months, or when you're sick as well. And that might be, everyone's like, well, why do we drink ginger ale? Because it helps raise your body temperature. Because as much as everybody tries to get rid of their fevers when they get sick, the fever is actually your natural way of your body fighting infection. So that's something to think about. So it's very interesting. So she goes and does these deep dives. She's written 3 books, and very interesting lady. And she's like, I was maybe it'd be worthwhile to come on the show and have a talk about the history of our food. It's a little off from what I normally do, but then again, is it really?
Yeah, I have. I saw this guy talking about the benefits of nicotine and how nicotine was really helpful in 2020 for a lot of people who smoke. They didn't get the thing. I don't want to talk about it on your show. Like, I get you kicked out,
Yeah.
But he said that he was saying how nicotine is very, has a lot of helpful benefits to you. And he was talking about tomatoes and how tomatoes is a big source of nicotine. So
yes, I heard that as well.
Ginger tea is a way to fight. Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
Way to fight is to fight fatty liver disease too. Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, my mom had a big book of home remedies of stuff that's been passed down for thousands of years, and I'm sure she still has it somewhere. But those are the things we need to get back to for sure.
That is the important stuff. Yeah. Sure. Oh, hey, we gotta. Let's see here. May I sure would have been feeling in a dream. I saw the United States getting hit, but it was our own government. I'm not trying to start any drama here, but it was so real. I'd like to hear your thoughts. So, factory. So, factory. So you're saying that the U.S. like caused a false flag by attacking itself? Is that what you're saying? If it is, let me know. Feeling about a dream. I saw the United States getting hit, but it was our own government. Yeah. Which is interesting because, in my own opinion, that's happened so many times.
Yeah, I was gonna say isn't it every attack that happened on U.S. soil has been, planned by our government, under the U.S. government, not Mexican government or Canadian government.
Yeah, it totally has. Like, there's been so many, and not talking politics, doesn't matter which side you're on. My personal belief, right wing, left wing, it's both the same shitbird. And because I think there's a lot more actors out there than we care to give credit to. which is kind of, I guess this is kind of bringing us into the conversation of what I wanted this to be, and the end times. Are we there? Are we on our way to the end times? And there are so many beliefs that we are, and there's so many people who want to point fingers at who the Antichrist is. They're like, oh, Trump is Antichrist, or this person is Antichrist. But you got to remember, though, that the Antichrist is going to win the hearts of so many people. Like he will be loved and supported by so many people. And is Trump? No. Trump has a lot of enemies. He has a lot of supporters as well. But there is it's not going to be Trump, and it's not going to be Elon, because Elon was, in my opinion, he could have been that character for me. I don't know. But now he's got a lot of enemies, a lot of people who don't like him. So who knows? Let's see. Yeah. So who knows where we're going to be with that one, right? It's very, very strange. I heard a theory that, it's almost too obvious Mr. Beast is going to be the Antichrist.
Nah.
Well, okay, hear me out. Think about this. He has won a lot of hearts over. What has he done in Africa? He's gone and drilled like hundreds and hundreds of water wells. But one thing I will say, seeing his show, like I just watched I don't know if anybody has watched his reality game show that he just did, where they gave away 10 million, or it might have been more than that. Yeah, it might have been $10 million. It was the highest amount ever given away on a game show. Now, so with that, in that game show, I saw the lack of empathy. He just didn't have it. There was no empathy. He just didn't care. And it really kind of became evident for me that, of course, he's doing it all for clout and everything, but it really didn't care about that at all. Now I see, Lyson, you're saying Elon's exposing the waste and abuse. That's why people want him dead. And I agree. Elon is exposing the waste and abuse that has been happening with all the money spending. But let's not forget that Elon is, prior to all this, he wants to put a brain chip into your brain, right? Let's not forget that. Like, I know he is doing a lot, but whenever someone kind of gets into a position of power, I always start to question them. I will support them prior to that, but I will always question them. And I'm like, but before that, like, that is what he wanted to do. Now, I've said this prior to any of this happening, before he ran Doge or anything. I'm not sure if I ever said it, but I actually believe he's a Luciferian. I believe Elon is a Luciferian. It doesn't mean, there is a difference between Satanists and Luciferians. I want to make that clear, okay? So there is a difference between them, but that is a whole other show that maybe I don't want to get into right now. I go ahead. Sorry, Brad. I'm talking a lot here.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, I think that anytime you get power, I used to work in the military. I worked for an Army general, and I saw how people acted around him. And when somebody has power or influence over somebody, it's weird. It's weird to watch how people change and how people, I mean, they will do anything. And also he handled it well, but there are people, now he ended up getting in trouble and all that stuff later on. He ended up cheating on his wife and some other stuff. But I will say this, it must have been hard for him to, I mean, I saw A-list celebrities swooning over him, right? So it must have been hard for him to constantly put that power at bay, I mean, because imagine having all the money and resources in the world. How many, as Elon, how many women would want him, for example, or men too, for that matter? And how many people would do anything? The amount of ass kissing that goes on, and the amount of like just phony people that are always around you and stuff like that, it would be easy to slip into as a man especially, it would be easy to slip into some kind of a dangerous spot and let the power kind of overtake you. Because if you get people that are just absolutely gorgeous, just looking at you like with this awe, imagine that. I mean, my wife looks at me with disdain. So like, I can't imagine how it feels when someone looks at you with love and lust in their eyes, you know? So it's interesting, man. It was an interesting dynamic to watch up close. You know, somebody
Yep.
who had a lot of power as an army general could easily, you know, have taken that to an extreme, and, you know, just that. And I know what people are saying with the whole, the comedian, Louis C.K. that got
Okay.
in trouble, and what the whole thing was, you know, he got in trouble doing a sexual act in front of a woman. Well, the whole problem was that it was looked at as, well, he was a powerful person, and of course that woman is just going to let him do that, and that was what
Mhm.
he got in trouble for. And he probably didn't realize that power, because he's just an unassuming guy. He's just a normal guy. But you do have power, even for a show like yours, Rye. You do have some sort of a pull that you might not realize you have. I mean, we know we don't, right? But
Yeah.
for people who they might think, you know, Rye is a famous guy. I gotta, be in his favor, and for whatever reason. So it's interesting.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, there's some people, they get contaminated by the power, right? It's kind of like that, that lust for power, and also just lust itself takes over, and then they get corrupted. I do feel that there is a lot of people who enter into, we'll say, politics with the right attitude, but then they get corrupted. And I feel bad. I really feel bad that this happens to some of them. You know, they have the right idea, and the right attitude, but then they get corrupted. And by corrupted, I don't like blackmail. The blackmail is going to happen so much. It's going to be just a little bit here and a little bit there. It's just going to keep happening, and then what? You know, it's they get that their foot in the door, and then they slowly take more and take more and take more.
It's like that episode of Black Mirror where, you know, they just spy on people, and they can look at them through their camera, and, you know, catch them doing things and all kind of stuff, and then
Yes,
blackmail
yes.
them later on. I mean, we're getting to that point where technology is, just like you mentioned with Neuralink, just intertwining, intermixing with our lives, to where, I mean, you and I rely a lot on like Chat GPT for quick answers and things like that. It's becoming, you know, to use licensed word, inevitable. Right, you are inevitable, by the way. So, yeah. So,
I am.
Lyson, I believe we've
Yeah.
talked to you before. Like, where aren't you from? Egypt or something? I can't remember exactly where you were from.
Yeah, I believe so. I think we might have even had Lyson on, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a
yeah.
very. I think he was a very interesting. He was telling us about the jinn, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there is, and there is like, so. I've had a theory that the end times have already happened multiple times, right? I feel that that perhaps this has happened many times, and rapture has happened as well. If we go back to, let's say, to Tartaria, let's say we go back to the mud floods. I'm not really sure where I sit with that all. But if we go there, and there was like this disappearance of civilization, where there was just these abandoned buildings that were just taken over, could that not have been that type of scenario? Could it not have been that people were literally, the rapture happened, everybody left, and then we just claim the civilization? We not civilization. We found the buildings. You know how it says like the building was founded in 1847, or or 1638 or something like that. It was founded. Why wasn't it built? It was founded. So that's something that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all these places, they look like melted ruins, that are petrified over time. And then, which, for those who don't know, petrification is like you lose all the minerals, but you keep it's kind of like a snail losing a shell or something like that, right? It's like you keep the skeleton of the tree, but you lose all the minerals and everything, and it becomes hardened. And if you look at a lot of places like Monument Valley in the U.S., or what is the mountain called again? Gosh, I don't know. My mind goes blank sometime in Wyoming.
Which one? Rushmore?
Devil's Tower. Yeah,
Oh, that
even
was Tower. Okay.
yeah, even Mount Rushmore, dude. I mean, I believe that Washington and all those guys were like George Washington and all them. I believe that they were like from a civilization thousands of years ago. I don't think that they were from like hundreds of years ago, which is kind of weird, right? It's weird to think like that, but because there's like statues of George Washington in DC where he looks like he's dressed in like what is it called? Greek, like the Greek what is it?
Oh, the
Tunic looking thing. I don't know what it's
oh my
called
gosh,
with the sash and everything.
toga, a
The
toga.
toga, yeah, toga, yeah, toga parties and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird, man, because you see those statues all over DC, and it's like, why is he dressed like Julius Caesar? You know, and so it's interesting because a lot of these places. There's a place in Georgia that is called, gosh, man, I'm sorry, my mind is blank. It's a giant rock, and there's a allegedly Civil War thing carved into the side, and this rock is just in the middle of nowhere. Like it's just a giant rock, and it has
Okay.
something that's carved into the side of it. And people say it's Civil War, but it actually doesn't look like that. It looks like it might have been carved thousands and thousands of years ago because of the way that the minerals have deteriorated, or like if something was like done recently within 100 years, it wouldn't look as rough as it does. Is kind of what I'm getting at. I wish I could, and I'll look it up maybe while we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
But
Please, yeah. Look that up. So it looks much older than it really was.
yeah, the patina on it is very, it looks much older. And I think actually I also think that somebody came in and tried to carve over it to make it look more like Civil War. It's a weird, because you can barely make out what it is. But let me look it up while we're talking. So yeah. Anyways, I think that you're right. We basically have hijacked history, or some people have, and have written it for themselves, including a lot of these buildings that they've founded. There's a lot of buildings here in the town I live in that I went to the local library, and back in the early 1900s, these buildings were torn down, but they were allegedly built 200 years before, when there were only like 700 people in the area and all this stuff. It was weird, man. Like there's a lot of weird history, and I've been doing a lot of local research, and you can the guy JT follows JC. He was telling me about how he goes around Richmond, Virginia all the time, and kind of studies the history himself. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing in my hometown, and I think everybody can do that in their hometown, and they'll just start discovering stuff that it's very odd and out of place. And it's like, wait a minute, there was only like 500 people who lived here. How did granite get erected in the form of like this, Washington or Capitol Hill style building? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of history that just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Hey Tom, shout out to Tom there. He was in the chat. I don't know if he's still there. But yeah, there's been a lot of cover-ups, but
I'm gonna share this screen real quick. I just want to show you guys Stone Mountain, Georgia. That's what I was trying to think of. I'm sorry, my mind goes blank sometimes, guys. But it's just a giant stone in the middle of nowhere.
Can you click? It's hard to see actually. You need to click on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird stone structure in the middle of Georgia, and Georgia's not known for like, mountainous areas and stuff. So you could see how they kind of try to carve it and make it look like a Civil War style monument. But there's some weird things about it that, like, this guy here looks like he might have had armor on, and they just kind of covered it up somehow or something. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is again right in a couple hours away from me. Like, doesn't that just look odd? And does it look like any mountain you've ever seen?
It looks extremely weird. Looks like a turd, but yes.
Yeah.
No, but do you have a further out picture of that one? Do you have one that's can look at the whole mountain itself? Because
like this.
Oh, that is weird. That is really weird. It's like a turtle's back.
Exactly. So it's all weird, man. It's this very like odd stuff that you can. Again, I've talked about it on my show a lot, where like right in my backyard, like there is a place called 40 Acre Rock that is 40 acres of just flat rock, as if we're on the top of that, whatever that castle or whatever it is. I don't know, but it's 40 acres of flat granite. And it's like, what the heck's underneath there? And of course, it's a state park. So there's no digging allowed. There's no,
Is it
drones.
similar to that, like the Ayers Rock in Australia? Head Trip is saying that, like that big rock in the middle of nowhere in Australia.
But all of this, there's a lot of that stuff in the coastal areas of the Southeast for sure. And so I don't know.
And then we could go into, the world trees, with like Devil's Tower, but
yeah, that's what I was alluding to earlier. Devil's Tower with in Wyoming, and if you look at Monument Valley, and I'll pull it up while we're talking again, but
yeah, no, so there is a lot of out of place things, but if we go way back to like the Younger Dryas, that really shook things up. And is things a lot more different than we actually know? And I totally believe, like War Eagle was alluding to something earlier about. Oh, sorry, War Eagle was alluding to something earlier about things just don't make sense. And I totally agree with that. Like, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. There's a lot of things that just don't add up. And someone else posted that, the winner is the one who writes the history books. And unfortunately, that I would say that has been in the last, like, more prevalent in the last, this last millennia, is when we're seeing that, where I think that the history has been perverted and really changed from what it should be.
100%, dude. I mean, if you look at like places like Monument Valley, which I have up on the screen right now, which is in Arizona, obviously, there's a lot of weird stuff in Arizona, which I'm going to do a whole episode on eventually. But all these, they're just like random mountains and if you can kind of see where my mouse is, or let me go to the screen. If you can see where my mouse is, these are just kind of like standing in the middle of nowhere. It's not like other formations have sort of risen up with it. It's just like, it looks like another tree stump.
I agree.
And so there's a lot of places.
Is this also near the location where it looks like an axe is laying there? Like there's an axe, like a petrified stone axe that looks like it's laying on top of one of these stumps. Have you seen that?
I have seen it. Let me look at it. Let me look it up real quick.
Okay. But yeah, it's very fascinating as the actual history that we're told, I do not believe existed. I don't believe so. I don't believe the native tribes were running around and couldn't do anything. I believe they were a lot more advanced than we give them credit for as well.
Going into the nether regions of Reddit here, but
there we go.
Yeah. So that's in New Mexico, which isn't obviously not far away from Arizona. So very interesting how a lot of these places, man, like I said, Arizona is very interesting. And, the Phoenix Lights, I just had a lady on the other day for the Phoenix Lights anniversary, was a couple days ago. That famously happened in Arizona as well. And then she was telling me about a lot of local stuff that happened in Arizona, that's going on in Arizona. Like she mentioned some Stonehenge, like this Casa Grande, I think it's called, which is like which is like it's older than the pyramids, allegedly. So there's a lot of interesting history in the United States. It's like, Native Americans allegedly built these things or whatever the case is, and it just doesn't make any sense.
I actually believe the Native Americans found a lot of those.
Sure, I do too.
Yeah.
After they whatever happened, a flood or whatever happened, dispersed everybody around the world, and people kind of had to flee. Or maybe it was the Ice Age, maybe the Ice Age happened and they all kind of hid in caves for a while. And then once the Ice Age started, unthawing, they moved to these warmer areas, all throughout the world. And they sort of started selling, because there's places in like Cusco, Peru, for example, where you can see that there's old ruins. And then which are the blocks that look like Tetris blocks, right? That fit perfectly. And then there's like a layer of these stones where these what looks like archaic people tried to build on top of the ruins of the
exactly. There's three levels. There's the original, and then there's like the Incan, and
Yeah.
then there's like the more modern, and it gets worse. The technology gets worse in building that. And I actually had Freddie Silva on, and we discussed that as well. Freddie Silva is amazing, and that interview is coming up, I don't know, a couple weeks, but really, really interesting. That I agree. Like, we lost technology, we went backwards with our technology, and then we started again. Sorry, Lyson said this, and I need to bring this up. The United States of America is the most mysterious and coolest place on earth. Dogman lives there. Well, Tom, I was just talking with Tom from I Jupiter podcast, and he lives here in the same city as I do, in Campeche, and he heard that there was a dogman sighting near where we live, like right outside of the main city. There's these kind of more smaller satellite cities, one called Lerma, and Lerma has a power generation station. And there was a guy riding his motorbike, and he put on there's something on the road, he put on his high beams, and there was this dog man that stood up on the back on its two legs. He said it was about 8 feet tall. And this is just recent. And from what I understand, there was multiple sightings of dog man in this area. And what's crazy is, Tom just told me this a couple days ago. I was out waiting for my daughter, and my daughter goes and does gymnastics for 3 hours a night every night, and I go to this other location where it's really dark, because I just like sitting in the dark and getting away from it all and just having a gander up at the stars. And for some reason, that just crossed my mind. I'm like, I don't know, I was just started thinking about Dogman in the area, and then Tom tells me, yeah, there was a Dogman sighting here. I'm like, what?
So you mentioned the fire episode I did with Hank and Kyle from the Sunday Night Secret Society podcast. On their post on Instagram that I posted to share that we did a show together, there was a song by LL Cool J on there that I hadn't heard since the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. I was, pretty young, but I still knew a lot of the hip hop that came through in the late 80s, early 90s and stuff like that. And I just remember that song. And when I heard it again the other day, I was like, oh, let me put it on this post. And then like 2 days ago, right out, like the next day, matter of fact, after I posted that, I ran out of gas, which I was like right by the gas station. My needle, I've driven the same truck for 22 years now. So my gauge on my truck is not working. So I didn't know I was about to run out of gas, but I ran out of gas, and I went running up to the gas station. I wasn't far away, took my jug, went to get some gas in the jug, and that song was playing in a truck beside me. And for me, it was kind of weird, because I was like, I haven't heard that song in 3 decades now. And then now I've heard it 2-3 days in a row, which is really weird. A lot of that weird stuff happens to me all the time.
What was that song? What was the name of that song?
Can't Live Without My Radio.
Okay.
By LL Cool J. Yeah. It was really cool. I mean, but it's interesting that those things always happen. It's like, and I always kind of shake them off, like, oh, of course it's happening again. Like, these little synchronicities are always happening. It's weird to me. It's very weird, very strange how these things happen. It almost feels like Matthew McConaughey was saying, like, maybe it's that because I didn't really start feeling this way until I moved back to South Carolina. And then I started getting all these synchronicities like crazy. So maybe where you're rooted at is where you get the most, energies from, because
you're connected, because you're plugged in better at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've moved around a lot, like, well, you have as well with being in the military, but I have moved around a lot, and I know exactly what you mean about being connected to the land or to the area. I feel that it takes me a bit to get reacquainted to where I'm at. I would say, like, where I'm at now, I'm still adjusting. It's been 3 years and I'm still adjusting. So it's trying to get that connection, and that connection to I don't know, to Gaia, to the earth energy, and allow it. And I think it's important to have it allow flowing up through you, especially to do something that's called earthing, which is to walk barefoot. That's something I haven't done much here, because you don't want to go walking in the jungle barefoot here. There's a lot of snakes. There's a coral snake as well. There's some rattlers, but there is a coral snake, which is one of the most venomous snakes in the world. So you got to be careful of that. And there's tarantulas and there's scorpions as well. But that's still something, though, that I've been making a mental note, is that I need to take my shoes off and interact a little more, which is also connecting as well. Another thing that I'm doing is I am I know you know this, Brad, but I'm not sure if everyone else knows. So I'm keeping bees. I would say that would be the way to say it. So I'm keeping bees, and I'm going to be harvesting my first batch of honey here on Tuesday. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I find that it's a good way to connect as well. It's also a fantastic way to be in the moment, to go into a bit of a meditation, because you have to make sure you're calm, because they're going to sense you. If you start going, it's your carbon dioxide that they're sensing. If you start breathing heavier, it's going to start agitating them, and they're going to be coming for you. I did get stung just the other day once. It was the first time in a while that I got stung, but I think it's really good to connect where you're at, so you can find that energy and get in sync with that place.
100%, man. If do you think that, and I want to go back to the last day, or the if it was the end of the world and who's running it and things like that, if there was an end of the world, that type of scenario where there's a cataclysm, I just feel like that these people, the world governments are causing these, and they've always been causing these to sort of wipe out populations. There's the Malthusian versus the Adam Smith economic model, which is where Marxism has come from. Marxism came from the camp of Robert Malthusian, where it's like, hey, we got too many people on the planet. We're not going to be able to continue feeding the people on the planet. So we're going to have to reduce the populations. And so that kind of mentality has spurned these different camps of socialism and Marxism and things like that. I know that sort of stuff has been around for a long time, a lot longer than Malthusian's theories and or principles on economics and things like that. But it's still interesting to think that there are people who really believe that. And you've heard Bill Gates talk about it. He's talking openly about, we got too many people. He literally says population control. He's blocking out the sun, which is God's light. He's blocking out from us. So it just feels like there are people.
He said that he wants to, if we do things correctly, and when he's talking about something in particular, we can reduce the population by, around 15%. He openly speaks like that. And it's not, and someone of that stature, someone of that caliber doesn't make that mistake. Okay. If I made a mistake when I'm speaking, I will correct it immediately, because, there's everything that the elite says and that they're trying to imply on us it's contractual. They have to tell you what they're doing, and you have to accept. I was just listening to Vicky Joy on Tony's show, and we were talking about that. When your birth certificate, if your parents, your mother signs your birth certificate with your name, she is allowing certain things to happen to her child, because she's engaging in this contract. So that's something to pay attention to, is that, and this is the thing I've always said. I'm like, how many things have we agreed to we don't even have a clue with, especially with like those contracts or those terms and conditions for just about everything we sign up for, social media, YouTube, everything. We sign these terms and conditions, but how often do you read them? I don't.
Yeah, I definitely don't either. But I mentioned on my show as well that our currency, our energy, is the only currency that matters in this world. Because I've heard Sam Tripoli talk about this on his show a lot, how they already got all the money, they already got all the power. What more do they want? And I think he even mentioned they want your soul, which is true. They want your energy. That's why they call it currency, right? I mean, it's an energy current. And so everything is about energy. If you look at how banks, a bank is a bank of a river, which helps electricity, helps conduct electricity. You charge your credit card, right? You got all these different terms that go along with currency, with current, even the name currency. So when we sign over that, we're assigning, I think we're signing our soul over. We're assigning our energy to them and saying we will be enslaved to you for our whole lives, and you have to agree to it, or they're going to cut you off the system. What's the guy's name that was on Tinfoil Hat who was talking about this? He's got like a funny website name is like with a cuss word in it. I can't remember the
I
guy's
have no
name.
idea because I did not watch that. Like I said, I've been so busy lately. I have not been able to listen to many shows. I do listen to Tinfoil Hats. Like the ones that I listen to are only a couple, and it just, unfortunately, I did not listen to that one.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go back on there sometime soon. I just don't know when. I was just texting Mark Steves today back and forth, and
yeah, you're saying that, and I know because you're going to go on to talk about your plasma, correct?
No, I don't think so anymore. I think that window has kind of come and gone because it was just
that ship has sailed. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's really talking about it much anymore. And then a lot of times, and as well, like current event stuff, people want to hear more current event stuff and less of the other stuff that kind of is already passed by, like I said, with the plasma stuff. But I think plasma is super important to continue talking about it. I talked about it on Tom's show a week ago, or a week or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember what it was now, but we had a great conversation about
Tom's was
the IAG
Friday. Yeah, that was Friday.
That was this past Friday. Okay, yeah, man.
I believe so.
I'm coaching Little League baseball now, dude, and it's like my mind is all over the place. So, but yeah, it's currency, man. We have to control our energy, which is everything I always talk about on the types of stuff I'm always talking about on my show. Is we have to guard your energy. You can't let the vampires in because they are energy vampires. They will suck the life out of you. And
100%. I've talked about energy vampires for years. Actually, I even did a write up in a magazine about it as well, because it is so true. And if people don't know what energy vampires are, it's the people that will suck your energy. Okay, they're not sucking your blood; they're taking your energy. It can be, and there's some, like, if you are, as I'm like tripping over myself here. So if there's someone who is famous who really shouldn't be famous for no other reason, they're an energy vampire. They are obtaining this level because people are giving them their energy, such as like the Kardashians. Who are they? Who cares? But a lot of people care. A lot of people give them their time and their energy. Time is what you have. Time is your life. You're saying it's like your energy, which is time as well. Where do you spend your time? Do you spend it with your family, or do you give it to some family that doesn't care anything about you? They just want your focus. They want your energy. And that's what happens is they steal that. You guys got to be really careful. And I get caught up in it too. Don't get me wrong. There's many times where I get caught up, and it doesn't matter if you're on the left side or on the right side. There are energy vampires on either side, and they are attracting you and they're stealing your energy. And I'm still learning. There's times where I have this self-recognition where I'm just like, oh crap. I just spent, a lot of time watching this, and what did I gain out of it? There was no good exchange, right? There wasn't me giving them my time and me learning something in exchange, or becoming, wiser in exchange. It was just nothing. I'm drained. I'm depleted because they've only taken, they haven't given anything back. So you guys got to be very careful. And I say that not like I'm like being a father figure or anything like that. I'm saying that because I'm saying that to myself, because I get caught up in that all the time. We just have to be extremely careful where we allocate our time. And especially with the craziness that's going on right now. And I had posted this on Facebook, and I talked to you about this, Brad, as well, is that there are, in social media now, it feels like there's an elevation in triggers. There's an elevation in bait, like rage posts, and they're trying to bait you. They know that this is going to affect you, and they're pushing this to you so that you can engage with them. Okay. So you guys got to be careful about that. I have to be, I finally just started hiding it all because it's taking up way too much of my time. I'm wasting time, like arguing with people on the internet who might not even exist. It might literally be a bot or AI that I'm arguing with. And why? why am I spending, 5 minutes to type out this post or 10 minutes to type out this great response and then sit there and wait for the response back when I could be spending that time with my family, and, or in worship, it's, I got to be careful of what I'm doing with that.
Yeah, and if let me ask you this: if the world ended today,
Mm-hmm.
how would you would you be happy that the world ended? I mean, how the world ended today? If today was your last day on Earth, would you be happy at how the world ended? I mean, at how it ended. While, like, for me, for example, I was with my family all day. I played with
Yeah.
them. I went to a birthday party. We done some stuff, and that's why I told you I had to get my family's permission to come on, a podcast tonight, because I was like really having a good day with them. So if the world ended today, it was filled with love and good times and hanging out with family. We ate pot roast. It was a delicious meal. It was like a great day to end it on, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I feel like if we live every day like that, that's the best way to be, like
Live
enjoy
every day as
every
if it's
single
your
moment.
last.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. And we're, like I said, like, I mean, I posted this as being like, is the end times here or near? It shouldn't matter. Even if you think, well, we're getting close to the end, you should always live your life with, praise and love and sincerity, and not in fear. Because I know in my heart of hearts that if and when I go, that, I'm going to be off in a better place, because, and I'm not perfect. I am far from perfect, but I know that that's where I'll end up. So I just keep on living the life I am, always trying to be better, a little bit better than I was, 1% better than I was yesterday. Just do a little bit better. And that's all you can ask for, is just try to be a little bit better. Try to be a little bit kinder. When you walk by that homeless person, even if you're not going to give them money, acknowledge them, let them know that they're human, make that connection, because I guarantee you that is something that they're calling out for, and that's something that we should be giving as humanity, giving love. Yes, we can give them money as well, but acknowledge them. It's huge.
Yeah, I think if there's a lot of things that they're pushing out and they're trying to get us to manifest. So when you having a show about, is the world going to end, or like end times, that kind of stuff, I feel like a lot of that stuff is they want things to happen. They want us to believe there's something's going to happen. Because if you do a Google search, dude, it's so weird. And we could probably do it here if you wanted to. It's up to you.
Yeah,
But
yeah, do it. Let's do it.
if you do let me just do this real quick.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah.
do a Google search on movies in 2026, upcoming movies, they might have changed it because everybody was kind of catching on, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, no, of course they don't have them. It's not on here anymore. But this was true, 100% true. You could do a Google search for movies, upcoming movies 2026, upcoming movies 2027, and all of it was end of the world stuff. All of it was end of the
Oh,
world stuff. Yeah, and
interesting.
so it was like, again, it looks like they've changed the algorithm because people were like, hey, we're noticing this, like, what is this? And it was going around social media for a while. And they've tried to do this many times before. They did this with the Deagle report, right? 2025 was going to be the year that the world's going to end. 2012, 2000, Y2K, and on and on. We've had this for many years now.
It's always going to end. The world is
Right.
always going to end. Yeah.
Yeah, and only God knows when the world's going to end, man. Like, we can't live in that fear of when it's going to happen or whatever, or if it's ever going to happen, because I think that our minds are too powerful that we could actually create that type of scenario, and we need to
Oh,
be
so
very careful.
you're because why don't you bring that up? How you believe, like, the devil cannot create, only we can, and so that this isn't soft disclosure, but it's kind of like, sorry, I'm stealing it from you. Please do it justice instead of me trying to butcher it.
No, I just think that, when they broadcast stuff on from their media, you could break down the words media, you can break down the words government, you could break down the words broad and the words casting and spelling and all these things, and you realize that what they're doing is they're casting spells through the media, and they're trying to get us to manifest reality, because again, we're created in God's image, And because we're created in his image, we have this innate ability to create. Because when God created the world, God spoke it into existence. He spoke everything into existence. And so when we talk, dude, our voices, every syllable, every vowel, every word can create these little, and this is 100% true. You guys can look this up. Every A-E-I-O-U creates these little vortexes, these little tornadoes of energy, these little vortexes, and each one of them have a torus around it. So every single word we speak is literally creating these little toroidal fields of energy.
And
We're
toroidal fields are amazing. If people don't know what that is, please look into toroidal fields.
Well, it's everything in the universe. It's literally everything.
Exactly.
I mean, it's from down to the atoms that are in our body. But it's very interesting. So when we speak, our words have a lot of power. And I was just telling my cousin on the phone earlier, and he didn't really know about this either, that again, those words are everything that is created in this world. Every atom is made of matter, and it material, which means it materializes, right? And it's all vibrations that create these things. So again, we have that ability to, when we say words, we can create reality. And so if our power is taken from us with all this noise and technology and all this stuff, and I always talk about how when I'm in my office, there's all this electronic stuff, my face starts getting real red. My face doesn't look like this all the time, but when I'm in here, my face is really red. And I think it's just from this abundance of energy that's coming at me and affecting my bioelectric field that I'm producing. And so again, when we speak words, they have a lot of power. And our minds, our thoughts are vibrations as well, and we can think things into existence as well. So if they continuously put it in the movies, if they continuously put it on, and you think about 2020, that mass psyop that happened, but eventually people all went, no, I'm not. I don't consent to this anymore. I don't consent to this information, this stuff that you're trying to push on me. And then what did they do? They automatically backed off and go, no, you're right. We didn't really say that. Blah blah blah. Because they know that our power is that's the real currency in this world, is our energy. And so you can't let these people take that from you, and that's what they continuously do. If you keep watching the news, and even shows like ours, people in our sphere of influence in the podcasting world or whatever, people get to a point where they're just like saying things just to say it. And we have to be very careful with what we're putting out into we're speaking this out to thousands of people, maybe even more. It depends on how you look at it with Google Hide and stuff. But
I want to be speaking it out to thousands of people. So make sure everybody likes and shares this. Shameless plug there.
But yeah, it's very interesting to think that our words, and you got to think about this. Think about this for a second. Homophones. You know what a homophone is, right? A homophone is a word that sounds the same, like writing. You can, your right hand and you're writing something, and a religious rite. So all three of those words have the same sound when you say it. So when you speak the word right, whether it's writing with your hand or ritual rite or your right hand or whatever it may be, then you're vibrating the same.
So even though you could be meaning something else, you're still, it doesn't matter, because you're still creating the same vibration.
You're creating the same vibration. Yes.
Interesting.
That's why homophones are created. And actually that's why, if you look at like Black's Law Dictionary, that's what that basically is. It's it's a book of spells, basically. All these words have totally different meanings. And so
think of it. So altar, altar and altar.
Altar, right.
I'm just looking at some right now. It's just,
So that is a very interesting aspect when you think about, like, again, manifestation. When it doesn't matter. A lot of times it doesn't matter what they're saying. It matters what they're saying, but what I'm saying is that they will say these same words, and it doesn't matter if it's true for them. They will, as long as they say it, as long as they get it out, as long as they get it out to the airwaves. There's this thing called trial ballooning in politics, where politicians will leak, quote unquote, leak information to the press about upcoming legislation that they want to pass, right? But like, for example, Lindsey Graham will leak something, and Lindsey Graham's office is leaking about possible gun control. Well, what they're doing is trying to see if people will accept that information. And so it'll leak out and it'll stay in the news cycle for a couple of weeks, and then it'll disappear. If everybody's like, yeah, we don't consent to it, then you won't hear from it again. And so that's how they use psyops. That's why they need psyops. When they do false flags and all these other psyops, that's why they're doing that. They're doing that to try to get us to a heightened state of vibration, to where we're like, yes, we need that legislation. And then we pass the legislation at night, 12 o'clock at night or whatever.
12 o'clock at night, yes.
Yeah, or early Friday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, because they pass, by the way, they pass legislation at all kinds of different times. And it's based on precipitation levels, when lightning is going to strike and things like that, because there are, and I know I'm kind of veering off a little bit, but the way Washington, D.C. is set up, for example, there's the Washington Monument. And the Washington Monument has this little pyramid on top, and it's aluminum, and it helps when lightning strikes it helps charge the ground, and it sort of amplifies the energy. And so they pass legislation. It's like something like 40% of the time whenever it's snowing or raining, which is and a lot of something like 70% is when lightning is occurring in the region. So what they're doing when they're trying to pass legislation is they're trying to amplify that message at the right time. That's why they pass law at 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning.
And I think it kind of comes into this license, so question, do you think magic that is destructive is achievable in real life? Well, it's exactly what you're talking about. I think this is magic. Science and magic used to be married together, and then we separated them. Okay. And I believe that they need to come back together. It definitely needs to come back together. So yeah, it's interesting. I never knew that. I heard something about them doing it at certain times, to amplify it, but I did not know it was that high of a percentage during storms, especially get those lightning strikes.
Yeah, and there's all kind of like there's flowing water underneath DC, and so this goes to my theory of like, obviously telluric currents coming out of the ground and things like that in different regions, and so they're working with these earth energies when they're passing legislation to sort of amplify their reach and their ability to cast that spell, whatever that spell may be, and I think there are a group of people who sort of oversee all of this, because these politicians aren't writing legislation. I mean, have you ever seen them? They're like 1,500 pages long, and there's no way they're writing any of this stuff. It goes into a secret room somewhere, and a whole bunch of people, a bunch of underlings allegedly, and a bunch of other people, a bunch of NGOs, which is a whole nother thing, which is why what Elon and all of them are doing is amazing. But you're not going to root out that corruption. It's like a terrible cavity that you just can't get rid of. You're going to have to do a root canal. You have to basically kind of get rid of the whole thing and start over, is really what it amounts to, because you're not going to root out this evil that's deep in the cavities and the caverns probably of DC, because there is underground networks all in DC. I've been underneath the city on these little trolleys and stuff. It's very,
really,
yeah. Every city has that, by the way. Even in
underground tunnels and whatnot. Well, I guess a lot of them are maintenance tunnels, but yeah,
I know I'm kind of getting off a little bit, but
no,
the point is like they are. It's all energy, man. They're all harnessing our energies in every which way they can, and so they're going to push out stuff like movies, man. I mean, they put us in. And think about that, man. When they push movies like The Matrix on us, and now it's starting to manifest a little bit, and they're putting out, and that's why the stuff from The Simpsons comes out. That's why they've been doing this for 30 years or 40 years or whatever it's been now, 40 years now. And they continue to be right about stuff. Well, they've been doing this for 40 years. And so they're going to keep putting out stuff, and it manifests into reality if we believe it. And people were going to believe cartoons, especially if you're a kid. You start to like, you believe the visions that they show you of Earth being round. You believe the visions that they're showing you that the world's going to end one day, all this other stuff. And they catch you when you're young, and they get you in these schools, and they train you in these encampments, and then you go out into the world and you just become a slave. That's what we all are. But the only way you will ever be a slave to someone is if you if Rye, you told me you're ugly and I reacted to you or I let
Yep.
it bother me, then I'm your slave now. That's how slavery works. It's that easy. You
It's
own
that
me.
reaction, because then
Yeah.
I own that energy now, because yeah, and I've said not millions of times, sorry. I've said so many times, it's just like, when okay, so there's a lot of drama going on in this paranormal world, and I'm sure everybody in the chat knows it's all going on. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I had a discussion with someone recently, and I said, let's just why don't you just walk away? Because if you walk away, you remove the power that those other people have over you. You eliminate that. You just say no, because when you argue against someone else, what are you trying to prove? Okay, like, if you've defended yourself enough, then that's it. Because some people are, and I will say, some people are just mentally unstable, and no matter how much you try to argue against them, you're never going to win. They're just going to keep creating new things. So, and you're going to continue to be in that same argument. So you need to just be like, no, that's it, I'm done. And by doing that, you regain your power. You show how much power you have, and they lose it. So through that interaction, there is an exchange of energy, but it's a lot of low tier energy, and you need to stop giving away that energy. You need to allow that energy to build up, so you can elevate it to those higher levels. So it's very, very important to do that. Is stop engaging with the trolls, stop engaging with those people that will bring you down, those ones that cause that anxiety in your gut. You're just like, oh man, what are they going to say? Just leave it. You have to walk away. There is some times where, guess what, you're going to have to fight, but if it gets drug out over and over and over for like a year or longer, it's time to cut those losses and move forward, because those losses are anchors, and they're going to hold you down when you could be just flying to the moon.
I just saw. I was looking for. I wouldn't mean to be rude and look at my phone a while ago, but what I
Not
was
at
looking
all.
for
No.
was I was looking for a post that I saw on Instagram recently that I commented on. It was about a guy who there was two guys fishing in a pond, and somebody came up and this one guy was just yelling, "This is a private property pond, and this belongs to the community," and all this stuff. And I swear, man, as I was watching, I was like, "Oh, this guy is just put on Earth just to do that." Like it's his only role. He's an NPC. That's his only role, is to go and stir your emotions up and get you fired up and get you, but they didn't let this guy bother him or whatever the case is. But it was still interesting because as I was looking at him, I was like, if for anybody, a lot of people who listen and have played video games, you know what I'm talking about. It's like when the NPC walks up to you in the video game is like just bothering you and all this stuff. You think about like Grand Theft Auto and all this. That's what they are. They just are there to get in your path and to affect your thought. And it gets me thinking like maybe this is a school, maybe we're just here to learn and all this stuff. Yes, It was a private property pond in an HOA. That was the whole thing. But
I see, that's the kind of thing that I watch that sucks me in, is like I watch these First Amendment auditors, or the people who know their rights really, really well, and they go and push those boundaries. And sometimes I feel that they go a little too far, but nonetheless, I feel that it's like you don't own the water. Wow, we say that, but there's many corporations who come in and buy the water rights, which is ridiculous. That should never, ever, ever happen at all. They should be paying for these water rights, not even paying for them. Just I don't know. Never own water rights.
Nobody has. War Eagle said the United States is in big, big trouble unless freedom, liberty means more than Christmas bells. I think that freedom is in, dude. You have it. It doesn't matter if you're in a prison. It doesn't matter where you're at in life. Freedom is in your mind. It's in you. You don't have to go look for it anywhere. You don't have to get permission to have freedom from your government. You don't have to get permission for anything. You don't, we were talking about, fishing in the United States and in South Carolina, you have to have fishing license. Well, you don't have
Yeah.
to go get a fishing license. You can say fuck off and go get them. You can go fishing on your own. Who's going to stop you? Really, you know, until you give them that power, until you agree to them saying that, yes, I will give you this power, and I will get my fishing license, and I will get my hunting license, and I will get, you know, in England, they have to have a license to have a TV, or they have to have a license to have four wheels on their car.
I saw something like
Right?
that. That is
It's like,
ridiculous.
it's true. It's 100%. I dated a girl who lived in England, and she was telling me that, and it's insane that but you have agreed to all that at some point. You have consented to all that, and I just don't consent to that anymore. I was paying, like, I got a small business, and I was paying business insurance for many years, and I was just I'm complying all the time. And I'm not saying don't be compliant, but what I'm saying is, like, why did I consent to that at some point? Why did I agree to that? Why do I agree to any kind of insurance or whatever that, and I started kind of backtracking all this, and I started looking at the fact that if they're taking our money from us, the money that we work for, the money that we put our currency in to make, then they're stealing our currency in another way. Just it's another form of slavery. And again, man, you have this ability. Yeah, I'm a rebel. Yeah, real rebel. But I am getting to a point where I'm like, nobody can tell me what to do. I think Ron, what's his name from Parks and Recreations, he handed somebody a piece of paper, and it's like, and the guy opened, he said, because the guy said, let me see your license. And he gave him, the guy, a piece of paper, and he opened it, and it said, I'll do what I want to do. Like, that's how I feel about things now. It's like, you can't really tell me what to do unless I allow you to tell me what to do. So
I agree totally. The government has too much control, though. I think people need to be more responsible. That's the issue, is that people need to be more responsible and more respectful. Okay, because there's the people that will go, but hunting licenses don't stop these people. But there's the people who go out there and poach, right? They'll go out there and just kill a ton of animals, and for no reason. Some will just do it for sport, which I find, terrible. But and then I'm wondering, like, well, what does the licenses do? Nothing. It's like gun licenses as well, or restricting guns. You're restricting the people who honor the law. You're not going to restrict the criminals. Those are the people that need to be taken out of society. And, well, I don't want to say taken out of society, but need to be dealt with, whether it's through education or, just come on, people, wake up and realize that what you're doing is harmful. Like, when you're saying fishing licenses, yeah, if I said that here, people would be like, what are you talking about, fishing licenses? You don't have to, like, I'll just go off the end of like a walk to the Malecon where there's the ocean, and just cast my line out and try catching a fish. And if I catch one, I catch one. I'm eating fish tonight. But if I don't, well, then I'm not. I don't have to pay for a license or anything like that.
Yeah, I respectfully, you said, I suggest switching to a constitutional party. I suggest switching to no party, because there is no, we're always talking about, like, the Black community or the Hispanic community or whatever. We're all communities of one. We are all minorities, because there's only one of you. There's only one Rye. There's only one Brad. There's only one Caesar who's in the chat. And there's only one Bennett, right? There's only one of us. We're a community of one, where there is no greater, let's be honest, nobody cares, right? No parties for sure, but nobody cares about what goes on in your life except for you and your family. So get back to the idea that taking care of you and your family, and that's it. Don't worry about the world around you. If the world is burning around you and crashing, just be like, well, it's I'm here with my family. I love loving life. It's a good run. You know what I mean? I don't try not to get tied up in that fear mongering stuff of, like, because it did bother me for a while. I'm not gonna lie, the cataclysm stuff and, like, the end of the world stuff. And
yes,
but, dude, I think that just with the same with paranormal stuff, I think it just is a manifestation of your fears and a manifestation of if you're in a low vibrational state at the time or whatever the case is. I think that's when things manifest, right? I think that's when Dogman pops up. I think that's when oh, thank you, BJ. I appreciate it. She's always showing some love. Thank you, BJ.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that, again, man, you can manifest this stuff. And that's why I think that guys like Tony, who, and if you feel, we're Tony Merkel from the Confessionals,
Yeah.
he has a loving, he has a great family. He has a wife and 2 kids that he loves and hangs out with, and he gets to be around all of his family and friends and stuff and people who love him. If you're in a high vibrational state like that all the time, good luck trying to find Bigfoot in the woods. I just don't think you're going to find him, because I think that you're putting off too much light, that and I think that when we get into these little pockets of sadness or something that happened in your life, that's whenever things start happening to you. That's whenever, if you drink too much, or I got a beer sitting here beside me, by the way, I haven't drank it yet, but if you drink too much,
I was drinking some mead earlier, some honey wine earlier. So yeah, it happens. But with what you're saying though, so my wife said to me, she's like, do you feel that with all the stuff that you have witnessed and saw in your life is because you had some crappy things happening? I don't want to get into that, but let's just say that she's like, you didn't want to live in this reality, so you kind of leaned more to the other reality, and that is why you're able to see so much more, is because you're not really living in this reality. You're in that other reality. And I'm like, I don't take that as an insult or anything, but I'm like, valid point. It really could be valid as to, maybe because I was looking for an escape of sort, that I was able to walk with a foot in both worlds. I don't know. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It was a valid point.
I could be wrong, but I think that that's what Vicky is always talking about, is that there is this manifestation of that, whatever that thing is, like almost like an egregore that lives in you, that shows up from time to time, right? That can reappear, and you have to release that thing. You have to tell it to go away. You have to let that energy go out of you, because it is a negative entity that lives inside of you, that has sort of grown inside of you. I really believe that. And what she says is that you have to pray down to whatever that was. If a kid picked on you in school when you're in 2nd grade, try to find out what the source of whatever issue it was, and pray down to that, and make sure you close that door, because you let that demon in at some point, and you have to pray down and close that door. And I think that that's the honest to God's truth, is that when these things start to manifest, it's because it's an egregore that you created in your mind from whatever trauma. There's a lot of people in this world, in this paranormal world that we talk about all the time, who have been abused, who have been sexually abused, who have been physically abused, who have maybe put trust in an adult that, or when they were a kid, that did something to them, or whatever the case is. There's always something that gets people to a point where they go, because you have to walk through the darkness. It's the dark night of the soul. You have to walk, just like Jesus did when he went into the woods for 40 days and faced the devil. You have to go through that darkness in order to know what the light is, kind of thing. And it's like,
but make sure you leave that darkness.
You leave it, close the door behind you. Don't let it, continue in. And then, when people go to Skinwalker Ranch and stuff like that, they say that things follow them home, right? There's a lot of stories about these things following them home. And I think that's why, because you probably let them in. You've agreed to it. That whatever that energy is, you've agreed to let it in. And I just think you have to close those doors behind you. So
I think that's a brilliant piece of advice, is that I really think that we got to make sure we close those doors and don't allow those things to stick around, because some people will be comforted by it. They've almost, it's like, I was born in the darkness. Bane says from, but no, we weren't born in the darkness. We're all born in the light, and we have to make sure that we, make sure the difference. I think that's really important, is to know the difference, because evil is not going to approach you with, like, don't get me wrong, there are evil things out there that are scary, but the real ultimate evil is not going to be this scary thing. It's going to try to entice you to come over. It's going to trick you into coming over, into believing in it, because that is what gives it power. It's not your fear is low energy vibration, but if you are able to follow this and worship this and befriend these things, that's where things get a little bit dangerous. So you got to watch out. It's I always call it like not call it, but I say this joke, it's like come to the dark, as in like from Star Wars, come to the dark side, we have cookies. That is it. They're going to try to bring you over. We got cookies. Yeah, be careful of those Girl Guide cookies, because they are laced with heavy metals and what is that Roundup, the glyphosate as well. So you got to be careful of all those cookies. So just be aware of who you're making deals with and who you're making a relationship with, because it could be far worse than you really know. And we just have to be aware. And I've seen a lot of people walking a fine line, and then next thing I know is they're falling down that hill, and they're falling fast. I've had a couple friends that, and as much as you try, you can't save them. They have to, in the end, we have to save ourselves. You can be there for them when they come back, but sometimes they have to fall and hit that rock bottom before you can actually help them up. But let them know you're there. That's all you can do.
There are people who just embrace the darkness, right? You either embrace the darkness, you embrace the light, or you kind of teeter on that line somewhere in the middle. But I think that if you think about someone who is, selling drugs and all that stuff, what do they always beat their chest about? I'm from the streets, or whatever the case is. I'm with this clique, or what. So you've embraced that darkness at some point, and which means you've embraced that vibration, that low vibration, and so it's going to manifest into something worse. You're going to end up in drugs, on drugs, in jail, dead, whatever the case is, if you continue to live in that vibration. But me and Trebles Garcia were talking about this. He stopped drinking, and once he stopped drinking and started changing his life, he started realizing that the person that when he would walk to the store to get alcohol would be in his path would be like, "Hey man, give me money." I need, he would encounter all these people who were like terrible, had terrible energy, that were thieves and that, were alcoholics and stuff like that. But then when he stopped, it was like all of a sudden, all he started encountering was good family men that he was trying to be. And so like he embraced that light rather than embracing the darkness, and started to vibrate higher and manifest more positive things in his life. I hate to use those weird spiritual words on your show, man, like manifestation and all that stuff, but it's really true. You can, it's called reality transurfing, where you can jump to different realities, different versions of yourself. Somewhere that same version of Trebles still exists, but it's in a low vibrational state. And I think that when you do sort of start to elevate yourself, you do kind of switch timelines, like we talked about on our show, Rye, on my show, yes. Rye. But you kind of switch timelines, and like you said, it was like a record, right? It goes on to a different groove. That's kind of what it is, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's a different frequency. It's a different frequency on the radio station that you tune to, but the other version still exists. So
I got to talk about that again. The occult rejects have asked me to come back and talk about that, and I'm like, I'm all nervous because I'm like, how do I repeat that? I thought I did good, and now it's like I got to repeat it again. So I don't know if I can do it justice as I did on your show, but yeah, no, it's very important. It reminds me of the one quote. All this kind of reminds me of that one quote. It's like, battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. And that was Nietzsche, right? Friedrich Nietzsche. And that's very important, is that for us who are gazing into the abyss, we have to be very careful. It's a very fine line. So just be careful.
Yeah, man, we live in this little sliver of light, and which means that we have this certain vibration that we're putting off. And there's, that I said this last time on your show, we're 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. That means that we're the paranormal ones. We're the weird ones. Everything else is around us is 99.965% is the spiritual world around us. So we're really the paranormal. We're really the odd man out, right? And it's like everything out there wants to get into our reality. They want to hijack your vibration, your light, and experience this world, because this is, think about it. It's perfect temperatures all the time. Think about how perfect everything is in this world, and how everything operates exactly how it should, right? I agree. And so of course, when you're living in this disembodied reality that they live in the spirit world, in the ether, in the void, in the upside down, whatever you want to call it. It's cold there. It's freezing cold, and they want to get into this perfect temperatures, and they want to smoke cigarettes and drink beer and have sex and do all the things, all eat steak and do all the amazing things that we do here in this
Yeah,
reality.
I agree totally. I believe that there is minor possessions happening all the time where they kind of latch on a little bit, and it's to, you know, for gluttony, lust, you know, the seven deadly sins is kind of this entrance for these demons, and it is. And that experience that I had where I saw the other side, as I like to call it, I believe that was the world where these disembodied spirits in live, and they want out because exactly what you said. They want to experience, you know, smoke a cigarette, you know, have sex, you know, eat some ice cream, have a beer or something like that. You know, they want to indulge, and so, you know, we
Yeah,
have
the
to make
love.
sure we're in control.
Yeah, I mean, they just want to love too. I think you probably live in a place where it's hate all the time and all this stuff, and they see us, and I'm looking at my beautiful kids. I mean, gosh, it's just looking at them is amazing. My heart melts, and I'm like, we experience that. They can't experience that stuff. They don't know what those different emotions are. Have you ever seen somebody who's been possessed? Even people who if you've ever gone to a Pentecostal holiness church, when a spirit gets inside of your body, or you see it in somebody else's body, it looks like it's very painful, and it's like they can't control it. That
Yeah,
whatever thing is getting inside their body doesn't know how to operate our bodies. That's why when you see people on drugs, they're all slumped over. You know, like you think about Kensington, Pennsylvania, right, or the Kensington area in Philadelphia. There are these people who are on drugs that are like zombies. They're all like slouched over and all this stuff,
yeah.
just because these things don't know how to operate our bodies, because we're again uniquely built to operate these bodies. Our souls are uniquely built to pilot these meat suits that we're in.
That's interesting. I never actually thought about that. That makes a lot of sense. And when they are exercised from the body, they do a number on the body. Like they leave a gaping hole that we have. You got to be very careful that it's not infected again. I wouldn't say infected or possessed again. You have to be very, very careful to close and heal that wound, because once someone is exercised, they're very weak, and there is a gaping hole within them that needs to be closed and sealed back up, lest it be reinfected.
Yeah, and if you think about, look what happens to people who do drugs. Like I'm 42, so um, whenever I see people who are on drugs that went to high school with me, they look like they're 65 years old, because it sucks that energy, that life out of them. Literally, it reminds me of like the Little Mermaid. You know how the Little Mermaid, when Ursula takes the souls of all the people, and they're like these little dried up worms that are kind of floating around and stuff like that. That's what I think about when I think about people who are on drugs, or people who have let these demonic forces enter their body, because they literally suck the light out of you. And so when people, even if you come back from, doing hard drugs for a long time, you're still going to look very rough. Your life is it's going to be very different. And hopefully people
I
do
agree.
bounce back from that, but it's like, you look rough after that. You look like you've been through hell, which probably have, so.
I agree totally. You know, I've seen people that are they look much older. They've aged so much, and they've lost a lot of their life. It's been stolen
Yeah.
from them.
No,
Uh,
100%, dude. It's just negative energy. I mean, that's all there is to it. And you have to realize that there are forces out there that just want to. I think that there are groups of people on this earth that work with these dark entities to lower our vibrations, so these entities can attach themselves onto us and try to live in this world, but they can't do it, man. We're uniquely built, we're uniquely made in God's light. Unfortunately for them, they, even if they get attached to us, they can't enjoy this world. And that's why I think they're making hybrids. That's why I think they're working with certain factions of the government, probably giving them technology or medicine, and trading for human souls. And they're probably letting them, our governments are probably letting them abduct us and take us and try to make hybrids that can live on this earth. But they just can't do it, man, because we're uniquely made. Only two humans can
they're getting
create
closer,
life.
though. I agree, but they're getting, male and female will do that, but now they're able to create children out of male and male, and female and female. They're actually gene splicing to be able to do that now, which in my mind is scary. It's not right.
Yeah, but
I
have you
don't
ever seen? Yeah, I don't think so either. But have you ever seen that spark of light that happens when the zinc,
conception.
when it's called the zinc spark? It's at conception.
Yeah.
That light is God's light entering that, entering that egg and fertilizing that womb. That's the only time. So they can't recreate that. There's no amount of needles and CERNs or whoever that's going to split the atom and do all this stuff. There's no amount of doing that can recreate what God created. They'll never figure that out. I don't,
I agree.
they can have all these different labs, underground bases, whatever they got, and they can try to make hybrids, and they can mutilate cattle or bovines and take their reproductive organs to try to do all this, but they can't do it. They can't be us, and they can study us all they want. They can try to continue to make hybrids, but they can't take the light of God out from us, right? We have that ability in us, so we have to protect it, like we said earlier.
I agree. And I don't know, should we wrap it up for tonight? Or do you want to keep going?
That's up to you. It's your show, man. I'm just here.
I don't know. I didn't want to go. I don't want to go for too long, but maybe a couple more minutes. But yeah, like you were talking about creating hybrids. I think that's something that is readily trying to happen. They're trying to create these shows so that they can be inhabited by these demonic spirits. And for those who don't know, demonic spirits are the dead, deceased Nephilim. That is where demon spirits come from. Yeah, disembodied spirits are the Nephilim. Yeah,
they of course. Wow, man, they took the bells away from us. Those bells, they still have Himalayan healing bowls and things like that you can strike that just immediately lines your vibrations up. And they got rid of all the bells. They're blocking out the sun. I mean, they're trying everything they can to ruin God's creation. And so they can try to say, they might even try to cause a cataclysm with their weather modification. But again, I don't think they really have that power. And I think God's plan will obviously outshine theirs, or have God's probably got some kind of way to prevent all that from happening. I would imagine he wouldn't let the flood happen again, but
exactly. And I actually think the blotting out the sun has been something. It's something that's been happening for a while now. And I know as soon as you mention chemtrails, people go bananas, because that's not the word we should be using. But it's contrails. It's not like they're spraying an extra chemical. It's actually within the exhaust. The exhaust that's coming out is what we're seeing. It's these added, and I think you know that a little more than me about that. But
me, no, that's Jim's expertise. I still didn't quite understand what he was saying on my show that day, but yeah, I mean, whether any way you look at it, they're definitely modifying the weather, So they've openly talked about that. They've openly admitted that. That's not like a conspiracy. So they're spraying aluminum and all kind of metals out into the sky, and they're getting into our food. And we talked about it. Hank and Kyle and I talked about it on the last show, how maybe that they're allowing these metals into our food and our vaccines and everything because they want to magnetize us in a way in these smart cities and stuff like that. So it's an interesting conversation.
Well, and you're talking about magnetize us, okay? And I'm going to go to something, the shot, okay? The one that many people took, 4 or 5 years ago. There was the thing, I don't know if you remember that, where people were holding up metal objects and they're sticking to them, like spoons and everything. It's like, I'm now magnetized. So when you're talking about this, to magnetize people, well, that very much could be it.
Yeah, and again, that's what they're wanting to do with all these smart cities, which is again, this revelation that we had on this last show that I did was, we were talking about how these, Myrtle Beach wants to be they got a plan to have a smart city, call it Meta Beach. LA has a plan to have smart LA. They have all these smart everywhere they're wanting to do smart cities. all of a sudden we got wildfires and all this stuff going on. So, and ironically enough, there's lithium deposits underneath, Asheville, North Carolina, for example, right, where they had the big hurricane. And then there's a lithium battery plant that's being installed right near Myrtle Beach, which is where all the fires were. So again, all these lithium, where these deposits are, and where these battery plants are, and then where they're installing smart cities. And again, I think that's what they're wanting to do, is sort of have us fill with metal, and in these smart cities sort of just control us. They can just turn on a switch and a vibratory switch, and all these metals vibrate in our bodies, and we just kind of turn into these NPCs, these transhumanist NPCs who just go to work and push buttons and do all these things. I really think that they probably are starting to learn how to do that kind of stuff. And I think that, again, we have to sort of get back.
So if you've seen that, like the nanoparticles that were in these, they're able to use frequencies to cause them to form shapes and to do things. So yes, why not us? Why not be able to control us that way through frequencies?
Yeah, and I mean, I know that goes down a conspiracy rabbit hole kind of thing. I mean, that's what we talk about. That's where we go with these things, and you kind of have to go where these rabbit holes take you a lot of times. And it's like, man, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? It's like, it's kind of hard to deny. Yeah, it's kind of hard to deny where all these things are happening, where these wildfires are happening, and where all these hurricanes are happening. It's kind of hard to deny that this stuff it's not a coincidence, is what I'm saying. That there's, where they want to do smart cities, and where they have stores of lithium and things like that. The world's leading supply of lithium too. So,
interesting.
I hate to be like it feels like a downer almost. I don't want to be like a downer, but that's
not at all. Like I think it, with wisdom comes power. You have this knowledge, and sometimes, like Tony, we referenced Tony here a couple of times, like he says in the end of his show, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off, or it'll upset you, or it'll cause you to lose sleep. It'll do something like that. So, and it depends on what you do with that truth. If you just choose to keep ignoring it, I had and I don't like calling it, well, whatever. So I had some awakenings to certain truths that really did piss me off, that actually kept me up at night. And I had to sit there and allow part of me to die. And this is what I say, you got to let part of you die so that you can grow. You got to let it go so you can grow. And sometimes it's very difficult to because you mourn that side of you that is now gone. And then you need to move on. But some people will not. Some people will not accept the truth, even if it's in their face. They will not accept certain things, and it's hard. It's a very hard thing it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I just don't think people are ready for that yet. Some people aren't ready for the information. Fortunately, like I said, 2020 happened, and everybody just kind of went, "Oh, wait a minute! Like, we've been asleep for a long time. Now it's time to wake up a little bit." And when you start to see it, I'm still waking up, right? Because I'm still like, "Oh my God, that's going on too. That's going like, oh my geez, this is crazy." So, my podcast is kind of like that. It's an awakening journey. I always say at the beginning, thank you for joining me on my awakening journey. That's really what it is, because I learn stuff every single day, and I'm like, oh my God, like you can't unsee it once you start to see these things, how everything's laid out, and how the cities are laid out in grids and all this kind of stuff. How if you zoom out from a city, it looks like a circuit breaker, right? It's like, or a battery cell or whatever. It's like, it just makes you think that there's then you can almost get black pilled, Yeah,
you got to be careful not to get black pilled. That's for sure.
Yeah, and just enjoy what we have now, man. And like I said, I ate a delicious pot roast today, and I'm like the guy. What's the guy at the end of? I met him before. The guy at the end of the Matrix where he eats the steak. Yeah, I forgot his name in real life, but
Cypher?
I met it. Yeah, Cypher. Yeah, he's eating the steak, and he's like, "I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy this." Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not bad to do that. Don't let this shit get to you, because eventually you will get to a point of like, you get very angry, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where like, oh, let me get back to loving my family again and living life, and like, grow. I'm gonna start a garden and start growing my own food and get some chickens and stuff here in my yard. And I know not everybody can do that. They probably don't have the land to do that. I realize that, but you can put a little dirt box on your windowsill and start growing your own tomatoes there if you live in an apartment or something like that.
Yes, if you live in an apartment, like one of my friends from Grimerica, he has just a small backyard living in town, and he had chickens. He just has chickens running around, right? You don't need much, so it's not like you had to have a chicken coop. Of course, he built something underneath his playset for his children, but that's what he did.
Yeah, we can use what we have available. Is that we don't have to rely on some government. By the way, govern means to steer, and mint means mind. So the word government literally means to steer your mind. Okay, and I think people need to understand that for sure.
Exactly. Sorry, do you see what Wildman just posted?
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah.
Wildman, yes, Brad did a show all about He-Man recently in the Horde. So I don't know if you sub to Brad's channel, by all means, go check it out. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think part of Lyson, I think part of escaping the matrix is realizing your inherent authority over yourself. You're 100% free. You are a free person. You don't need you don't need a government or a document to tell you that you're free. You need you have that ability in you.
Yes.
Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody. That you are born free. And they just they try to capture you. And by the way, we were talking about everything's always talking about currency and energy and all these different. What is where they put you at in jail? They call it a cell, right?
Cell.
It's like
yeah.
Everything is about taking your energy and harnessing energy and using it for There's an episode on Rick and Morty that I like Rick and Morty, man. I watch it all the time. But there's an episode on Rick and Morty where Rick, he's a scientist, this mad scientist, and he hangs out with his grandson, and they go on adventures in space and all this stuff. Well, he created a world that literally just powered some device or something like that.
His battery. His battery.
Yeah. And then he went to that world and he was like, yeah, I made this whole world just so you can, power this battery or this toy or this device or whatever it was. And so their whole world was shattered. But if they would have just in this show, this cartoon, obviously, but if they would have just ignored it and just, he didn't really have any power over me. I'm not really powering his world or whatever the case is. Then you can separate yourself from that person, and you're free. Your energy is yours. You don't. And I'm telling you, dude, that is 100% the only real currency in this world. And I think people really have to understand that. Don't give that shit away, man. I'm telling you, it's valuable. There are entities trying to get it from you. That's how valuable it is. There
are many entities trying to get that shit from you, man. Yes.
Yeah, dude. They'll spend millions of dollars on a movie to get that from you. They'll spend tons of money on marketing campaigns and all these other things to get that from you. If it's that valuable, hold on to it, man. Don't take that. Don't let nobody take that from you, dude. That's very valuable stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, don't listen to me on my show. I'm terrible, Lyson. I'm terrible.
No. Brad is amazing. Yeah. So if you guys want to check out Brad, he doesn't really. I know BJ had posted your YouTube channel. You don't post as much to your YouTube channel, do you?
Not on YouTube.
No. Brad is more common on Spotify or Apple. So check him out there and at the Awaken Podcast. And
Thanks,
he's got a website, theawakenpodcast.com, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to be like, I'm trying to redo things now. I will start doing more of this stuff. Because I know that people want to watch video rather than just listen to audio. So I'm going to be doing more of this stuff. So look for bigger, better guests, including Rye. Coming up on my show, you're going to have a lot of like heavy hitters that I'm going to have. I mean, I've been reaching out to a lot of folks. I'm going to try to start doing my own stuff as well, sort of supplement. I'm not very good at it, but I got to get used to just sitting there and talking into a mic, pretending that somebody's there as I'm talking. That's really hard to do. This is not the easiest thing to do.
Hard to do.
Yeah.
When you are trying to do a solo episode by yourself and you trying to give something out, it is very, very difficult. Yeah. And hey, BJ, don't worry about that at all. Don't worry about not having those links at all. It will be in the show notes. I don't have that ready yet, but Brad's links will all be in the show notes. But if you want to check out Brad, go to www.theawakenpodcast.com, and that's where you'll find Brad.
Thank you for that plug. And guys, if you like the content, man, I'm telling you, I've said it before, please hit the follow button on subscribe on Spotify and Apple, and also please give a review for these shows because they will boost our ratings in the algorithms. Okay, you'll basically, I've seen this firsthand. I've seen it go from just a couple hundred impressions to, once people start commenting and liking the show and following the show and stuff like that, to thousands of impressions a day, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands a day or a month or whatever it is. So those likes, comments, shares, all that stuff, that really, really matters, because you're telling Spotify, you're telling YouTube, I like this content. I want to see more of this guy or this person, this group of people, whoever it is. And they will then lift your show in the rankings. And so you will get more people following the show.
It really helps. It really does.
Yeah.
Now, let me explain this. So I see licensing Spotify is not beneficial, but it is, okay? Because there are certain people, and there is a crossover, but there's certain people who will only watch, and there's certain people who will only listen, and there is that crossover. Yeah. I would say I'm more of the camp of the person who listens, because I'm too busy to sit down. Like I'm building things. I was building this floating shelf to go underneath the TV today, and because I'm not sitting and watching, I have to listen. So I will listen all the time. So I don't have. I'm always like, what I do is I teach online, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm having my interviews. When I'm not doing that, I'm editing the audio and the video, or then I'm building things, or I'm hanging out with my family. So it's very hard for me to find the time to just watch. So there is two different camps, and I can see it very clearly that there's the viewers and there's the listeners, but there is that crossover. I will say there is some crossover, but there is some that are just solely this way or solely this way. So that, even if you're not listening, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple. It really does help, or just share the shows. It really does help just to boost us. I think I'm coming to an end here for tonight's show. Brad, is there anything you want to say before we head out for the evening?
No, we've kind of closed it out already, but I just want to say to Grandizer, do it because you enjoy it. Yeah, you're 100% right, man. Rye and I, we talk all the time. We get caught up sometimes and like, man, let's continue to put out more content. But we both realize we don't want to be slaves to the system. So we started kind of pulling it back. We're pulling the reins back a little bit. Yes. And we don't want to be a slave to pumping out content that benefits the owners of Spotify and things like that. But we still want to get stuff out, because you have to kind of stay relevant a little bit, or the algorithms will sort of ditch you, and good content will be found. It'll float to the top for sure. Right. But it's like, but it is an uphill battle if you don't do the right things. And like, if he and I didn't post for 2 or 3 weeks, we would essentially start to become almost irrelevant in the search, when people do searches and things like that. So you're right. Your authenticity and speaking straight from, shooting straight from the hip, or speaking from your heart, that's where it matters the most. And I think that's how Rye continues to succeed for sure. And I try to speak from my heart all the time and just talk about the things that bother me, or the things that I like, or whatever the case is. Yeah. So yeah, you're 100% right, man. Yeah. Don't be a slave to the system. For sure.
And I see there's like some posts going on right now about authenticity. That's something that, Brad and I pride ourselves on. I am always looking to find people who are authentic, people who aren't hoaxers, aren't liars. Though, like, it's difficult to, like myself, I'm the one who is bringing in the cryptids. I don't think, Brad, you do any cryptids, but like I interview some people, or okay, sometimes. So I interview people who have these cryptid sightings and whatnot, but you just got to be careful. You got to be careful of them. So sometimes one might slip through, but I'm always trying to make sure I'm bringing out the best and bringing out the most informative stuff possible. And I know Brad's doing the same thing. We just want to bring out have those good interviews. And, like, I don't have many people that I don't know how to word this, but I would say I thoroughly support Brad's podcast. I thoroughly support my good friend Matt from Planet 412 and Blake from Mount Man Explore the Truth. And there's other podcasts that I do as well. But I feel that we're trying to give you guys the best without any compromises. And for us to do that sometimes, like Brad said, we have to scale it back a little bit because, Brad and I were talking about, like, should we do 2 episodes a week? Sometimes I do 2 episodes a week. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing one with Coven of Curiosities. We're going to be talking about witches tomorrow, but it's every now and then I'll release a second episode a week. But for most part, it's just one because it may not seem like a lot, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah, and we try to build relationships with the people that we talk to as well. We have a lot of friends in this podcasting world that they like to get one guest in after the other, and that's fine. That's the way they do things. But for us, we like to build bridges with people and make good long lasting relationships. That way we can reach out to them. So a lot of times we don't just like to pump out content. So I wish we could do more, because I'm sure people who go to work every day, they want to hear something while they're sitting at work, or maybe when they're on the road, or whatever the case is. But yeah, man, we have families too. Like I love hanging out with my kids, and I've been neglecting them a lot, and I gotta stop doing that so much,
And one last thing I want to say, though, before we head out, is I actually think the worst thing in this industry is not the deniers. It's not the people that say, no, I don't believe that. It's actually the hoaxers. The hoaxers, in my opinion, are the absolute worst, because they will convince people. Let's say they get found out and you're just like, I fell for that. That's it. I'm done. And they direct people in a direction that I don't want. I don't want people to, fall in these camps where it's like, you see this picture and these red circles everywhere. We have to be careful. We have to discern what the truth is. That pareidolia is a big thing. And so just be careful, approach everything with a healthy dose of skepticism. Always. Don't jump in and believe it right away. Just say, okay, is this real? Do I really see something? Or is it pareidolia? And that's something that's very common in the cryptid communities, that there is a lot of pareidolia. And just tell people, be careful. Be careful of what you see out there.
And shout out to Broadcasting Seeds and Beyond the Frequency podcast. Y'all go check those guys out as well. They were here in the chat tonight, and Eye of Jupiter was in here as well tonight. And
and Broadcasting Seeds and Frequency 369.
Beyond the Frequency 369 with Caesar Pagan.
Yeah. So everybody, want to say thank you so much for showing in us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys, like I say, if you like it, subscribe. If you leave a comment, and if you really like it, share it. That really does help. And enough of me saying all that crap. And let's head out for the night. All right. And later, everybody.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosity wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms of stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home.